healthy food and those sorts of things. And if it's not, I'll say something to the effect of, "Yep, it's good and good for you," even though it may not be. And then I have to explain, "I'm just kidding. This really isn't that healthy." But it's nice to have maybe once a week. We don't have to have something that's totally all protein based or something of that nature. But cupcakes are one of those things. It's not healthy, but we enjoy them. So we might say, "Yep, it's good and good for us," right? So maybe a little bit of a joke there. But there are some ways we can probably make cupcakes healthy. Caitlin, let's talk about maybe that a little bit.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring up this topic of when we're baking, and especially because now we're getting into the fall and winter holidays, and so a lot of folks are going to be pulling out recipes and baking and doing lots of sweet treats. And you don't have to, quote unquote, healthify any of your recipes. Those sweet treats can always just be more fuel for your soul that day than necessarily fuel for your body, and that's fine too. But if we want to incorporate a little bit of nutrition into our baking and our sweet treat recipes, I thought we could talk a little bit about ways to do that. Some of these you've probably heard of before, and some, maybe a little bit like unique for that. So one that's an easy thing to do is switching out a little bit of fat. So depending on the type of recipe, I know I've just this weekend I made a batch of chocolate chip cookie bars. Those are nice for me because I don't have to sit there and babysit individual trays of cookies. I can just lay out the dough in one flat layer, bake it, and I can cut it up into bars, and that works great for us. And I've been modifying this recipe over the years to a point where I have been able to reduce the fat and sugar just a little bit, and also changing the type of fat in there. So one that is pretty commonly heard or told in classes that I teach is half of the fat in your baked goods you can substitute with something like applesauce. And that reduction in fat does change the texture a little bit, but doing like a 50-50 split, so half of your fat and then the other half that would have been fat replaced as applesauce still adds moisture to that product. And so it is reducing fat and it's adding back some of that moisture that you might miss if you just half halved the fat and didn't do anything else to it. That's an easy substitution. Sometimes, like for my cookie bars, I've actually added in half. I've kept the amount of fat. I reduced it a little bit, but I've kept the amount of fat. I'm not doing applesauce, but I am doing half butter and half oil. And oil works okay in some baking applications. Something like a chocolate cupcake oil can be great because you want a nice moist product. Something like a cookie, you don't usually want to cook with oil because it's too soft and the batter will spread and you get a more crispy cookie than you do a nice chewy tender cookie. But I know for this cookie bar recipe that I've been trying out, having half butter and half oil seems to work well for this recipe. So I'm pleased with that. And then because I'm using oil and less butter, I am increasing the unsaturated fats in my cookie bars. So that is going to be a heart healthy type of fat. More of our liquid oils can help improve high cholesterol numbers, incorporated with other dietary changes. So that's a nice switch there. So fat is one thing that you can switch. The other one is sugar. You can usually reduce sugar in a lot of baking recipes by a quarter and maybe up to half, depending on how sweet you want the final product to be. And because sugar does have food science applications, it's going to provide color, it's going to provide tenderness to the product. So if we reduce the sugar, we change the texture of that final product. And so we don't want to get rid of the sugar entirely, but we can try and reduce it and see try it out, try reducing it by a quarter. So if you've got a recipe that calls for a cup of sugar, try 3/4 cups of sugar the next time, see how it goes. So you can change the fat, you can change the sugar. You can also change the fiber around a little bit. So if you want to change your all-purpose white flour and you want to incorporate some whole wheat flour, it's going to help add in some extra fiber. Not a ton, but it's going to add a little bit of extra nutrition. There's some different vitamins and minerals as well. And so that one, you can usually do a 50-50 ratio also, similar to our fat being kind of a 50-50 ratio for fat and applesauce.
Mm-hmm.
For our flour, we can do a switch of 50% all-purpose and whole wheat flour to give that a try.
Sure, very good. One thing I was telling you before we got started, Caitlin, that I have taken notice of is on Instagram, particularly. You get a lot of these guys that do a lot of like weightlifting and some of those things, or exercising. They like to put out there substitutions or ways to take foods that you may not be as healthy and make them healthy. And one way they do that a lot of times is anymore you can find protein powder in various flavors. Strawberry, vanilla, chocolate. I've even seen like candy flavored protein powders and that sort of thing, and substituting that in the place of like a flour or a sugar or something of that nature. Those are, if you can find those on your social media of preference, those are great ones to try out as well. May not have that same taste because you're obviously not getting that sweetness of the artificial sugar, but it's still a kind of a nice alternative with it's still a decent flavor. I think so, at least.
Yeah, and the nice thing about that is a lot of baked goods are pretty low in protein. So if you are someone who enjoys having a muffin in the morning as maybe part of your breakfast, if you're able to incorporate a little bit of protein powder into the recipe, that is going to increase the protein. So that's going to help add extra protein. That is going to help improve kind of the sustainability of that meal. So if you eat a regular muffin and that's kind of your breakfast, a couple hours later, you're probably going to be very hungry because there's not a lot of fat or protein with that muffin. But if you're able to incorporate a little bit of protein powder into that muffin, that will help give it a little bit more staying power. So you might get 3 hours or maybe 4 hours on that muffin to help increase that satiety or that fullness that you feel. So it's a great way. And the hard thing with doing something like this on radio is it's hard to give you all the specifics, all the things of what ratios and what things to do. But that's kind of the fun thing, at least for me, about baking is to experiment. And so to give it a try, of course, you could always look online and see what other people have tried and had success with or had failures with. But you can always, give it an experiment, see if you can incorporate a little bit of something into your recipe for sure.
Absolutely. Caitlin Mellendorf, nutrition educator, U of I Extension, our guest on the phone here for this morning. And so, Caitlin, as we talk a little bit about just substitutions and those sorts of things, maybe it's not necessarily baked goods. Maybe there's there's other recipes where, we talk about like this time of the year, we're maybe talking about slow cookers, and you're talking about maybe chicken broth or beef broth. And, sometimes those can be high in sodium. I know nowadays you can really find broths that are low in sodium, or even, there's some substitutions for those broths as well. Talk about some of those things that we could think about.
Right. So if you are shopping, and I think we definitely had this um, during COVID or any time where maybe the growing season had a weather impact. There was drought or flooding, and stores didn't have the usual items that maybe we're used to purchasing. Sometimes we have to make substitutions in our cooking, and sometimes that can benefit us if there are nutritious options available. So if we can find more if there are things like bacon or sausages that are usually pretty high in sodium, if we can try out the reduced sodium versions or even a lower sugar option, they're always worth trying. Excuse me, for just having ingredients available. So sometimes you don't have reduced sodium, maybe soy sauce available if you're going to do a stir fry. That's okay. Use a little bit less, and then you might want to just dilute that with a little bit of water to reduce that sodium in there. You can still use just a little bit less. This really is about having flexibility with your recipes and being okay with trying substitutions, knowing that it may not taste exactly as you're used to, and that's okay. Especially when it comes to nutrition and salt and sodium, your taste buds will get used to reduced sodium after a time. Do give it a minute to do that, but you can definitely have substitutions for anything that is going to enhance nutrition. So if you're going to go buy canned green beans, I love that even store brands are starting to carry reduced sodium or no salt added canned green beans and other vegetables. So you can have those as a substitution available. And the nice thing is when they're off brands, the cost is still really hopefully budget friendly. You can also do substitutions with ingredients that you may not have available fresh. So if you have a recipe that calls for fresh garlic, well, you know what? Garlic powder can work too, as can dehydrated, kind of granulated dried garlic or freeze-dried garlic as a substitution for fresh. Again, having that flexibility with your substitutions, it may not be exactly what you're used to, and you may fumble a little bit the first time, but that's okay. It's cooking. It is not. It's not going to be winning every time we eat, and that's okay. We're just trying sometimes to work with what we have.
Very good. Well, Caitlin, I look at the clock. We need a break. Where do folks go for information on all these topics we've touched on so far? Largely substitutions for making some of those, favorites in our homes, particularly this time of year where we start to enter into that sweet treat season and those sorts of things. Where do folks go for all that?
Yeah, so I love all of our cooperative extension states around the country, and a lot of them will have free downloadable handouts on all of these different substitutions. So check out extension.org/search, and that will let you search for extensions across the country, including things on substitutions.
Very good. Caitlin Mellendorf, nutrition educator, U of I Extension, our guest on the phone this morning. More to come with her on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.
Tune in to any of our WEZC and WHOW platforms on AM/FM and streamed online this Saturday night from 7 till 9 in the evening for our annual Pigskin Playoff Preview Show. The show will have the first information on what area high school football teams make it in and who they'll play, plus live interviews with the coaches of the teams that make it in. It's all this Saturday night from 7 till 9 in the evening on 95.9 WEZC, 92.3 and 106.5 WHOW, and both stations' streaming platforms. The annual Pigskin Playoff Preview Show.
All right, let's see here. Acuron corn herbicide. Powerful weed control? Check. Long-lasting residual? Check. Proven crop safety? Check. Acuron checks all the boxes, which is why it outperforms and out-yields all other corn herbicides by 5 to 15 bushels an acre. Talk to your local Syngenta retailer or visit findmorebushels.com to discover your revenue potential today. Always read and follow label instructions. Acuron is a restricted use pesticide.
Let's face it, nobody likes to compromise. When it comes to your soybean fields, you shouldn't have to choose between powerful weed control and keeping your crops safe from stress and injury. Thankfully, there's Tendovo, a broad-spectrum pre-emergence herbicide formulated to fight weeds without sacrificing crop safety, delivering a higher potential yield for your fields. Tendovo, raising the pre-emergence bar one clean row at a time. Always read and follow label directions. Please check with your local extension service to ensure registration status.
Cooler weather is on the way, and at Love It Once More thrift store in Clinton, we're here to help. We have all our pants and jeans, adults and kids, on sale for 20% off. So come and see us. This is Connie reminding you to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, or dowhatdailynews.com.
This is Ryan Utterback with Utterback Real Estate. Selling your house on your own can be overwhelming.
Pricing, phone calls, showings, negotiating offers. Did I mention the paperwork and baking all those cookies for open houses?
And that's why you're the other Ryan.
For stress-free selling, click the Utterback Real Estate icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Once again, good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube. It's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Again, Caitlin Mellendorf, nutrition educator for the U of I Extension, our guest on the phone here for this morning. Caitlin, November is American Diabetes Month, and I know the Extension really tries to promote some programming and get some awareness out there about this topic. What do you have for us today? What's going on in November?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, diabetes is November is American Diabetes Month, and at Cooperative Extension here in Illinois, we are doing our Diabetes 101 series as a webinar. So you can come do lunch and learns on Wednesdays. We started this early in October, knowing that we would run our 6-week series into November, right into the start of November. So we actually have a session today, October the 18th here at noon. So for any folks that want to get signed up, you still have time. I will be demonstrating a recipe on that session today. But the series is a lunch and learn through October into November on Wednesdays from noon to 1. And folks can get registered at go.illinois.edu/diabetes 101 registration. And you can sign up for all of them. You can sign up for just a couple. And the goal with each of these sessions is, as the title says, 101, we're going back to basics. So for folks that have pre-diabetes that they've been told by their doctor, your blood sugar is a little bit higher than we'd like, but let's do something now so that we can prevent you from transitioning into diabetes. Or for folks that have a recent diabetes diagnosis and their family and caregivers that are going to be helping them manage their diet and medications. And so our focus with this series is going to be on all of the food pieces, so carbohydrates, meal planning, and then some other factors that influence your blood sugar besides just carbohydrates. And we want to talk about your care team, who is included in your care team as you're going through this, and even some things beyond just the food. So how does fitness build into your diabetes management? How do medications and stress management build into managing your diabetes? So this is a great free series to come and join us. It is all recorded. So if you are not available and you don't want to listen on your lunch hour, you can always come back later and listen for that. So again, you can go register at go.illinois.edu/diabetes 101 registration. And you'll get all signed up for that. And the nice thing too is we are doing recipe demonstrations as part of this. So you'll hear about 30 minutes of a lesson, and then we're going to throw some recipes at you, because that's the nice thing about this is you are going to have to do some dietary modifications with having diabetes and pre-diabetes. And so we want to give you some ideas to get you started. So the session that I'm teaching today at noon on October the 18th, we're going to focus on breakfast. And so we're going to have some overnight oat recipes, and having that, as we talked about earlier in this segment about flexibility, you have a lot of variety and options. So you don't have to feel like you're eating the same bowl of oatmeal every morning. So we encourage everybody to come out during this next couple of weeks. Like I said, we've been into the session starting in early October, but we've still got more sessions through mid-November coming in.
Very good. So a lot of good stuff coming their way. And, Caitlin, I feel like, kind of going back to our conversation in the first segment there, there's probably a lot of ways for folks with diabetes to alter maybe favorite recipes to make them a little more healthy, if you will. Will that be a part of the month's discussion at all?
No, we're not going to focus on that topic, but we do have an entire diabetes website that is devoted to recipes on our extension page. So our normal web page is extension.illinois.edu. If you add the word diabetes in front of it, so diabetes.extension.illinois.edu, that will send you to our page, which has a ton of recipes, including how to incorporate artificial sweeteners, if that is something that you want to do in your baking, and can walk you through how to incorporate those to help reduce the carbohydrates in your baked goods. So we won't talk about it on the webinar series, but we do have those resources available for anyone that wants to check them out.
Very good. Very good. Well, Caitlin, as we wrap up the conversation here for this morning, anything else on diabetes, American Diabetes Month we didn't touch on that you want to get to?
Yeah, so it's an important thing. So diabetes is going a little bit into maybe the broader perspective here. Diabetes impacts a lot of body systems. It can impact your eyes, it can impact your limbs and the nerves at your toes and your fingers. It impacts your kidneys, it impacts your heart. And this is all partially because of just higher blood sugar in your blood. And so being able to manage that rise and fall of blood sugar can really help improve outcomes later on in life for other things like your vision and your kidney health and your heart health. And so it's not just that, oh, I've got high blood sugar. You also need to remember that this is a disease that impacts a lot of other body systems. So the better you can manage it, the better you can work with your care team, the better you're able to work with food and exercise and medication, the better off your long-term health is going to be. So
Sure. Very good.
it is very much a scary thing to hear, but we want people to feel empowered to manage it.
Kaylin Mellendorf, nutrition educator, U of I Extension, our guest on the phone. Network news on the way.